Hello, I'd like to talk to you today about the autonomic nervous system. Now, the autonomic nervous system, I think, is the coolest darn thing that the body does because the body does it automatically or innately, and that's why I like to refer to the autonomic nervous system as the automatic nervous system because we don't have to think about it, which is wonderful because when we're looking at the nervous system and in all of its actions, we don't have to decide, do I need to survive this? Do I need to run away? Do I have a crisis? Or is this a time of rest? And so the autonomic system, when we're looking at it, actually regulates the body's controls to respond to stimuli, which can be the normal daily function of resting and digesting or going to sleep, or it can be dealing with the stress and the crisis of, say, a black bear behind us or a grizzly bear trying to attack us. Those are the functions of the autonomic nervous system. So when we're looking at the autonomic nervous system, we break it into two main parts. We break it into the sympathetic part of the nervous system, which is what I like to think of as the sympathizer. It says, oh, we really should get them out of this situation. Or we look at the parasympathetic, which is more of the daily routine, kind of like making sure that we're eating, making sure that we're digesting, making sure that we're going through the daily processes of life. So let's look at each of these systems. Now, the sympathetic system is often considered to be the fight, I'm going to fight, or I'm going to flight. I'm going to get the heck out of there. So the fight or flight system, okay? The parasympathetic, on the opposite, is often referred to as the rest and digest. So it's the system that kind of takes over when things are more normal. We're either sympathizing, we're fighting that big black bear, or we're running away, we're flighting the situation. Or parasympathetic, we're resting. Things are good, and we're digesting, we're eating. So let's look more specifically at each part of the sympathetic parasympathetic system and see what it does. Let's look at the sympathetic first. So if we're thinking about a situation that might be scary or sympathetic, or a situation that might stimulate our sympathetic side, I like to use the example of a bear standing behind me. So if we have a great big bear, teeth are growling or teeth are showing and the bear is ready to attack, what is our heart doing? Well, our heart says, hey, listen, we need to get a lot of blood pumping because this person is going to need a lot of blood to get away from the bear. So the heart starts increasing or beating faster. So the heart rate increases. So the rate increases with the sympathetic side. Our blood vessels, are going to do two different things. First of all, the vessels that need extra blood, like our heart, like our brain, are going to increase. So our heart is going to increase the vessel size. Our brain, our cerebral tissue, we need to be able to think if we're going to run away from the bear. So we're getting a lot of extra blood supply. Also, the blood is increasing to our skeletal muscles, our skeletal muscles, because we need to run away from the situation. We need to flight from the situation. So our skeletal muscle blood vessels are going to, the diameter or dilate is going to increase. But the areas that don't need the blood, like our intestines, like our stomach example, or our skin, they're going to constrict. So our skin and our intestines are going to decrease. So the blood vessel in those cases will constrict. Now, how about our lungs, our bronchioles? Well, again, if we're trying to flight or we're trying to flight or fight, we need a lot of air. We need a lot of oxygen because oxygen is going to help our cells create energy. So our bronchioles are going to dilate, Our bronchioles are going to dilate so that we can breathe in that extra air. We're going to have as much air capacity as possible in our lungs so that we can, again, fight or flight. Get the heck out of there. Now, how about our pupils? Now, our pupils, if we are running away or we're fighting, we need to see what we're running away from, and we need to make sure we don't trip over a log as we're doing it. So our pupils are going to dilate, okay? They're going to dilate as well. They're going to get nice and big, so our pupils are nice and big so that we can let as much we can let as much light in and we can see anything that might be obstructing our view. The other thing we're going to need is going to be energy. And in our body, the form of energy comes in glucose, okay, or our blood sugar. So our glucose levels are going to rise, okay? They're going to increase. Because if we're going to run, well, we need energy to run. And we need energy to run more than just a couple of yards. So the glucose in our body is going to increase so that we have energy. Another thing that happens is our saliva, okay, our ability to break down or drool. I like to think of it. In the sympathetic system, our saliva is going to decrease because the last thing we want to do is have a bear seeing us drool. In those cases, the bear is going to say, I think they're going to eat me, so I need to attack them first. So actually our saliva, okay, starts to decrease. And a good example of this is if you think of yourself going on stage, if you have stage fright, you're going to say, oh my goodness, my mouth gets so dry. That's because you're under a sympathetic reaction and your saliva starts to decrease. Now, how about urinary bladder? All right? Now, think of that bear behind you one more time. Are you going to say to the bear, excuse me, Mr. Bear, do you mind if I go behind this tree and urinate before you eat me? No, you can't do that. So what happens with the urinary bladder under the stress is it also decreases. So you have decreased urination. Decreased urination, so that at a time of stress or a time of fighting or flighting, you don't all of a sudden have to say, geez, I need to relieve my bladder. That wouldn't be good. And how about peristalsis? Again, it's the same situation. You're not going to say to the bear, excuse me, Mr. Bear, but I think I need to have a bowel movement. It's not going to be the time or the place. So in a fight or flight, all of the energy is going to is going into getting away, not into the peristalsis. So you're going to have decreased peristalsis. Peristalsis. All right, so that is the fight or the flight or the sympathetic reaction. Now let's go to the opposite side, the parasympathetic. Now the parasympathetic is what we call the rest and digest. Things are going good. We've survived any situation. Now instead of running away from the bear, we can lay back, we can rest, we can recoup, and we can finally have that nice meal and not be the meal. So our heart in this case, our rate decreases. It goes back towards normal. So we go back to a decreased rate, back to a normal rhythm, or normal, I should say, just rate, okay? Our blood vessels, in this case, are going to relax. So we're going to have some dilation. We're going to have more dilation to our skin and to our intestines, and our heart and our skeletal muscles will go back towards normal again. Our bronchioles, okay, are going to go back towards normal, so they're going to be more normal, okay? Our bronchioles are going to be normal, so we're taking in nice deep breaths and we're getting adequate oxygenation, but we don't have to dilate because of that fight situation, okay? Our pupils are going to go back towards normal. I'm just going to put constrict here, so you can kind of compare the two. And our blood sugar, again, is going to decrease more towards normal. Our saliva, okay, now all of a sudden we're eating that meal, or we realize that we're not going to be the meal and that we can actually eat the meal, so our saliva is going to increase so that we can dissolve our food. We can start having a wonderful meal. And our bladder is probably saying, phew, now I can urinate. So we're going to have increased urination, or the ability now to have be able to pass urine. And peristalsis is going to increase. It's the rest and digest. So now we're able to eat that meal. We're able to have more bowel function increases, okay? So that's what happens with the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. It's the body's way to automatically decide how it's going to react. Now, the best part about this is we don't need to think about this. We don't need to think, oh, there's a bear, I need to crank my heart rate up, or there's a bear, I need to dilate my bronchioles or dilate my pupils. The body does it automatically, and that's why we call it the autonomic nervous system. So this is part one of the nervous system. We are going to compare and contrast the different neurotransmitters in our next segment. Thank you for listening.